presentation.
Make sure I'm out of your way. What did you do?
Just cutting a limb. And it,
You're gonna have to have surgery?
I don't know, the swelling's so bad on it, they won't do nothing to it.
Good evening, everyone. We'd like to call this special meeting to order on July 16th, 2018. Time is now 6:31 p.m. Ms. Fear, I see that we have no public participation at this time, so we'll go ahead with discussion of the millage rate.
Ms. Erica Robinson will lead the presentation. Pull it back for you.
I can see.
Good evening. So tonight I'll be doing a short presentation on the proposed millage rate for FY19. And so first we will start out by looking at the digest history for the last 11 years. These are the actual tax digest numbers from fiscal year 2009 to fiscal year 2019. So we see that in fiscal year 2019, our gross revenue is projected to be just under 52 million, which would still leave us at a level that is below where we were in 2009 by about $2 million as far as gross revenue goes. As far as the digest goes, the digest is still about $364 million below where it was in 2009. So I'll just give you a few minutes to look over this slide. You can see in fiscal year 19, the millage rate is proposed to be 20. In fiscal year 2009, it was at 18.21. So here we have a average home sample calculation. So in fiscal year 2009, the average home value was $149,250. Using that value and the millage rate at the time was 18.21, the homeowner paid approximately $1,074. In fiscal year 2019, the average home value is $150,000, and at the proposed millage rate of 20, the homeowner would pay $1,120, which is a slight increase of $46, and that is due to the increase in the average home value. We also like to take a look at the teacher salary and benefits and the comparison from 2009 and through the years of fiscal year 15 through 19. So in fiscal year 19, the salary and benefits package is still below where it was in 2009 by about $500. We have been able to restore the salaries and continue to increase salary, as well as restore our 403B contributions. I believe we have a 0.5% to go on that to be back to 5% where we were in 2009. One component of this chart that we have not addressed yet is the contribution to the employee health insurance premiums. In 2009, the district was able to contribute to that, but we have not addressed that portion of it yet. So on the next slide, I just have a few calculations to show that if the board wanted to consider in the future contributing to employee premiums, employee health insurance premiums, here are some potential costs. So at a cost of $50 per month per participant, that will be $600 per year. We used a participant level from March of 2018, which was 2006. And so that cost would come to just over $1.2 million if the board decided that in the future they would want to contribute to health insurance premiums, employee health insurance premiums. And so you see the cost, if the board decided on $75, it would be $1.8 million, and if the board decides to do $100, it would be $2.4 million. And just as a point of reference, our lowest health insurance plan for a single coverage is $58, and the highest for single coverage is $173. So really, none of these amounts would cover a full employee's premium. It would only cover a partial premium if the board ever wanted to consider that in the future. And again, these are at participant levels as of March, so that number may go up or down. So next I wanted to talk a little bit about the relationship between the digest, the local fair share amount, and the equalization. So the local fair share amount is the board's contribution to the QBE funding formula, and it's equivalent to 5 meals. The equalization is the state's contribution to the QBE funding formula, which was put into place to support districts with a declining digest. So as the tax digest improves, our local fair share is going to increase, and our equalization is going to decrease because the tax digest is doing better. So you can see from the chart here in 16 through 19, our digest number is increasing. So our local fair share number is also going to increase. And again, that's the amount that the board has to contribute to the QBE funding formula. The equalization amount is decreasing, and that's the state's portion that they would contribute. And this would be the case for any county, that relationship is the same. As the digest improves, the local fair share will increase, and the equalization will decrease. So in the end, if you're just looking at these two factors, the local fair share and the equalization, it will decrease our state funding. This slide shows the impact of the millage rate adjustments on the local revenue. So right now we're at 20 mills, or we're proposing 20 mills, and so that will generate a revenue of about $52 million. Of that $52 million, we still have a local fair share of $12.9 million. So the local fair share, again, is the amount that the board has to contribute. So in essence, that's decreasing our revenue from 51 to 38. If we wanted to lower the millage rate to 19.5, the total revenue generated will be $50 million, but the local fair share is going to be the same amount because the local fair share is calculated based on the digest number. And you can see as you keep going down the chart, as you lower the millage rate, the revenue is going to decrease, but the local fair share is going to stay the same. You want now?
Can I ask a question now? That's, the local fair share won't change because it's based on the digest, but it would change next year when the digest changes, correct?
Right, next year when we have a new digest, we'll have a new local fair share number.
Right.
But for this year, any of these millage rates are going to have the local digest of $12.9 million.
Okay,
If the digest improves next year, the local fair share will go up again.
sure. Well, I don't understand why that's there then. It makes it look like it doesn't, it's just a factor.
It's just information, because
Okay.
sometimes people don't understand what the funding looks like. So we were trying to spell it out to show the impact of a mill on the net revenue,
Yeah,
given a stable number of the local fair share number.
Right.
Sometimes people think that the local fair share is contingent upon the revenue, but it's really contingent upon the digest.
Right.
Not the revenue. So
Okay.
just a clarifying slide, that's all.
okay. I just want to make sure that everyone understands as well, though, that the local fair share moves with the digest.
Yes,
So when the digest moves next year, the
Yes.
local fair share also will move.
yes.
It's not, this, to me, when I'm looking at it, looks like, oh, well, the digest, as long as it stays the same, local fair share stays the same. If you move the millage rate, you can get less money. Well, obviously,
Yeah.
you'll get less money. But also, the local fair share will move with the digest.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
As long as
I
everybody's
think-
clear.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. I think we were just trying to show that, given the same digest,
Yeah.
and if we were to adjust the millage rate, what would happen?
Yeah.
And that-
Which you
that's
could use this same slide, change the numbers every year, and it's gonna be the same thing.
Correct.
Okay.
It's gonna show the same outcome, yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, next we're going to take a look at per pupil expenditures. Newton is at the top just so that you can see it easily, but if you were to put it in rank order, we would be third from the bottom among this group of districts at just a little bit over $9,000. So this per pupil amount includes state, federal, and local funding. So this is this would be like your Title I, your Title II, special ed, and your QBE funding. All of that's included in this number, in this $9,000 number. On the next slide, this is our per pupil amount just for local revenue. So Newton contributes about $2,500 in local revenue towards the per pupil amount of the $9,000. So on the left-hand side, those are the same counties that were on the previous slide, and we would be at the bottom on this side of the chart, and those are the same counties that are compared on the previous slide. On the right-hand side, these are more counties, but we would also be at the bottom on that side as well. And again, this is the local dollars that are contributed to the per pupil cost. And this slide just breaks it down even more just for Newton County. So this is the local per pupil from 1996 through 2017. That's 22 years, and so the average of that is about $2,200. And I believe that in 2008 we were at the highest that we have been among this group of years at $2,900. So, and in 2017, we are just about $190 above the 22-year average. And so you can see there, as the recession began to take course, you can see the amounts begin to decline there in that 2009, 10, 11, in that year range. And here on this last slide, we have those same counties that we compared ourselves to and their millage rates in rank order from highest to lowest. And Newton, I believe, is 6th from the bottom, tied with Clark County. And so with that, we are proposing to keep the millage rate at 20 mills for FY19. And that's it. Are there any questions?
You don't have any questions? Comments?
Would you have, one comment, would you have data reflecting the number of students enrollment along with the same years that you have?
I can get that.
I just think, not knowing what the outcome, but I think it would give us a picture view that we have more students than we had in '08 or '09.
Okay.
And maybe the public will see more students, there goes the cost along with it.
Okay.
And it'll help, understand some of the information there. That's my viewpoint, if you
Okay.
got it.
Okay.
And another comment on the 403B, I think we should look at that from a long term. As you said, we at 4.5, and '09 we were 5. But I think we are failing to recognize from '09 to now, there's been no increase. We're talking about a base, is that correct?
That's correct.
So we're talking about a base that's how many years old? 10 for the most part. And we ought to start thinking how we can get that number up, because I think it will go a long way on showing future or existing employees that we do care.
Okay.
And although we've been doing some every year, I think every year, but I think now that we can be more aggressive in trying to raise that number. I think this will probably do more for our turnover rate, along with 2 or 3 other things, and it would be beneficial for us. It won't be a total, we save on the other end by not training people and,
Right.
all the costs that goes along with the high turnover rate. That will reduce the actual cost if we start doing that.
I agree.
Ms. Baker?
I actually like to see the, I don't remember what the number was, that 0.5 on the 403B in comparison to actually the health insurance premium. I think, just the difference, which one is more, which one is less.
In terms of total?
About the same. according to
Because
that.
the health, just my opinion, the health insurance premium would probably be better than the 403B, to be honest with you. Just because we have so many employees with health issues and health insurance costs are increasing. And so, you want your employees to be well I understand with retirement, but you want them to be well in the classroom, like right now, for like at the present moment. So,
Okay.
And maybe there's a balance that we can find. Keep doing what you're talking about, but at the same time, look at, that's a huge employee benefit. Both of them are. The 403B is really part of a benefit that many systems do not offer. So it makes us unique. I'm not sure what other districts are doing in terms of health insurance, but it was very much a great benefit that the school system offered when it was available to us. There were many people whose health insurance premiums were paid at the single rate. I think we paid $86 per employee for $1,033 over the course of the year. So maybe there's a way that we can look at both of those pieces, or any other thing that you think might be helpful in terms of salary benefits and, you know, health insurance and things like that. I mean, we've also taken care of and worked through the dental, hearing and vision, and we worked with the Canon for that as well, and the premiums haven't gone up. Now, I can't say that they won't go up in the future, but we used to also pay that as well, the vision, dental, and hearing for the single, and then if you were a family plan, you just paid the difference. So those are some other things that we might consider as well.
Yeah, people work better when they feel better. That's everybody.
I have a question. Is the cost of living factor into this?
Of course, I didn't understand the question.
Is the cost of living factor into this? The reason I ask that question is because we, kind of like what Eddie was mentioning, we go back to 2009. But if we knew what the cost of living was for each year, it can kind of balance things out that we may not be as far off as we thought we were, because 2009, whatever the cost of living was, it may not be that much now.
Right.
You understand my point? So I think that would be something that would be good information to have.
Well, what I would like to see going forward, we look at three things: the 403, health insurance, and what was the other one? I can't remember that one. It's three of them: health insurance, the 403. But anyway, it's three. I'll think about it after a while. And look at the total budget. And one of the figures that's been guiding us throughout the downfall of revenue was our ending fund balance. And I'm going to use the word "they," and I still don't know who they are. So that 7% was the norm. If my memory serves me, and the budget hadn't changed, we're running, I think, around 21% now. Is that correct? Am I close?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look it up.
Okay, if you don't know, you can look at me, yes, and say. I think it's 17, 20, I forget. But,
It's healthy.
I'm sorry?
It's healthy.
Right. And I don't think we should project ourselves as a person that's going to keep money in the bank, other than the ending fund balance that we agree on, which is appropriate, as they say. And we should take the difference between what we think is a good ending fund balance and do some projections on the coming year that would include some insurance costs for the employee, increase in the 403, and looking back at what we missed and putting in the 403, and use that missing number as a target to bring us up to date.
I love the prospect of projecting better, because I think we can definitely do a better job projecting some of these costs. I think the tripping point right now, and I know it's not your fault, but is getting the tax digest so late in the year, the information. Well, I mean, we've already got a working draft budget that we're ready to put into action, and then we're getting the tax digest afterwards. I don't see how we will ever be in a position to where we can have a conversation with any kind of data, any truthful conversation about really rolling back the millage rate, which is something that I would desperately like for us to see us accomplish both what you're asking and with the ability to roll the millage rate back. We're looking at having an increase of, what is it, over $3 million in revenue this year total. I think that's right. That just a half point rollback, we still in the plus over last year. So while I'm going to, hear all the information, and I definitely want to do what's best for school system and superintendent's proposal, but if there's a way we can project and look into the future and go, well, by 2020, by 2021, we'll be in a position in where we can look at a truthful conversation about rolling back the millage rate, I would be very happy with that we could have that conversation. It feels awkward to have the conversation now when we've already got a budget in place, when, and Mr. Johnson's right, we have this ending fund balance, that there's a number there. Well, if we knew going into the year what the numbers were going to be, we probably wouldn't have a 15% or whatever ending fund balance, because we'd have spent those dollars wisely on the front end, knowing how to budget for them. So I don't know who to direct that conversation to, whether it's the tax assessor's office or or what, but I feel like we're a bit handcuffed until we get the information at the appropriate time.
And it's unfortunate, we've been with that dilemma for years because we get the information so late. So that's the purpose of the ending fund balance, just in case we fall short. And like I said, I don't know who can answer those questions to expedite the information, but it's been that way for years.
And it seems like the tax assessor is less, and I'm just from Erica and I having conversation, there was a period in time where the tax assessor felt a little more comfortable giving you an estimation. So they could kind of tell by where the revenue was at a given time. So you kind of knew that it was going to be this percent, but not less. So you could kind of project out, but they're less willing, seems as though we're less willing to have that or share that information with us until the numbers are final. In the event that it doesn't pan out, then we built a budget on numbers that were the tax assessor's assessments or projections. So it is a really tough position to be in. But I will say, as we've talked as a group here in the past in terms of the charts that Erica prepares, and we look at the total number, the revenues and things like that. Erica, in her estimation for this fiscal year coming up, was really almost on the money with respect to the projection and what the digest actually reported. However, it may not be that way next year. So she's looking at trends in the digest and then trying to estimate, and then trying to get from the other tax assessors and looking at the paper and trying to, if they say in the newspaper it's going to be 8%, you kind of hedge on whether or not that's accurate. We just don't have all the information as early as we would like it. And for our budget cycle, you really need to be able to look at it in like April. And there's no way that we'll get it that early. So you have to go on projections, and then you want to try to get as close as you can to the actual digest so that we are spending the dollars the way that we need to for our students. So,
But if the ending fund balance is what we're discussing,
yeah.
we have, just in this year, if we just snapshot 1 year, we have the capability of rolling back the millage rate a whole point, giving 403B 1% increase, and paying $100 towards everybody's health insurance. Like, we have all of that and can roll the millage rate back if all those numbers are correct.
For 1 year.
I understand for 1 year, but
But then-
if we're going to always be 1 year behind, it sounds like, we're always going to have this ending fund balance that some
Well,
number
and-
we're
So
told by
that's-
day that we should have, and I like having that ending fund.
But that's the scary part about it, because
Complicate things.
you
It's
can
worse.
do that for your 1 year, but this is an ongoing
Yeah.
To
expense.
project it out.
So it could change the next year, and then you're in the hole. So this is an ongoing expense once you do X, Y, and Z. It's not a one-time thing for that 1 year. It's an ongoing expense for,
To include it in subsequent
And
budgets.
we always ask questions when we're looking at like increasing certain things in the budget. Are we going to be able to sustain this? Is it something that can last yearly? And so you don't want to play yo-yo with your employees and give them something, and then the next year like, oh, we gave you guys this, but guess what? This year we got to take it away. So
I understand.
so they
Taking
want,
things away before, and that's
Yeah.
the worst thing in the world.
and they want some
Nobody wants to do
stability as well. They want to know what their budget is. And if they can say, I know I got this for an extended period of time, and it may not be taken away from it, then they, and I would love to give them a whole lot more than we're doing, but we got to have an understanding that this is an ongoing expense. And like Ms. Baker said, we don't want to give them something, and then a year later, like, whoa, we're not going to be able to do the budget and take it away from them.
Well, I hope my point was made, though. I'm not saying
Oh,
we
yeah.
should spend the ending fund balance.
Right,
right.
My point was that it's backwards. Like, we're in a mathematical guessing game because someone else holds the data every year. And I don't know what the answer to that is, other than we use this year's tax digest, the one we just got, to project next year's budget. Then we can work like that, but I don't know
That's what we do. We use this year's tax digest and last year's and the year before, and we look at it on the average and what the increases were over the cycle of 5 years. And then you take an estimated guess looking at the
Right.
increases from year to year.
I'm not saying she's doing her job wrong.
No, no.
She almost nailed it this year, like
Yeah,
almost
she
to
was-
the,
she
like,
was
that
almost
great.
perfect
That was
right there.
incredible work. But if that's the formula we're gonna go with
Yeah.
every year, then part of this conversation seems weird. And why are we having part of this conversation? Why don't we use these numbers with confidence then? And I don't know, I'm
Yeah,
confused
because we
a little
don't
bit
know.
on why we have the conversation.
Yeah.
And why we have a rollback meeting if we're not really, if we've already done our budget, we gotta do this anyway. And why are we sitting here talking about it?
It's required.
Yeah, we had to have
That's
the rollback.
correct, it's
Gotta talk.
required by law, so we've got to fulfill.
You gotta
the-
get up, you know.
I don't feel like we're having a conversation. I feel like we're giving information that says here's what we gotta do. That's not conversation.
Well, we're bringing up some good points. And with the balance and the 403B and insurance, and we're got a valid point about we don't get our information in a timely manner. That's all well and good. But we got one final thing that's in our pocket, if you will. We can change that budget during the year when we see what our financials are. And we should be willing to recognize that and change it so that we will meet these things that we just identified as floating. If we manage the budget just a little bit different, a little bit of different philosophy, I think we can get over the hump on all these issues about the 403, the insurance.
And I think, to cover, I think that's why we have our midterm adjustments.
Well, that's what I'm
To
saying. We
address
got
that.
the tool to
Right,
do
yeah,
that, so
yeah.
it shouldn't be,
I love
I
it.
won't say not a concern, but an issue.
Right.
But the only thing you can't do is reduce the millage rate.
That's right. That's what we gotta do right now.
Psychologically, if we do those things that I just mentioned, and do a token millage rate, I'm just gonna name one, half point, I think you'll get the public excited.
I do too. I
I
agree with
really
that,
do,
yeah.
right.
Because I think we can do
I'm
both.
not advocating because to do that, but we're still in the hole. And until we get out of the hole, well, then we got to maintain this millage rate. That's just-
Let me pose this to you. Okay, say for instance, I'm just throwing a number out there. We reduce the millage rate by 1%. That's gonna be less tax revenue that we're gonna get.
That's right.
So we're increasing our expenditures, but we're taking in less money. So the county gonna need their funding to bring in as much money as they can because they have services they have to pay for, like fire, police, and other services. So where are they gonna get that money from?
Oh, the
Just go.
county?
I'm just saying, if they decrease theirs as well, like we're decreasing ours, then we're gonna get in less money.
No, they're
They're gonna be on the
increasing
same
increasing.
principle that we're going through.
Yeah.
Identical, the same.
Right,
theirs. Except they're not maxed out on their millage rate yet.
but my point is, we won't get the money, the revenue in to do some of the things that we want to do, because we're talking about an ongoing expense.
Right.
It's not a one-time thing, it's an ongoing expense.
It
Sure.
compounds over time.
Exactly.
Every year you get that much less, plus the growth of the digest, you're not getting what you would have gotten at the higher millage rate.
Sure.
So you're losing. If I could show you a slide that said 2018, 18.21 mils, $54 million, we would be having a different conversation. But I truly believe that in 2008, that our employees in 2018-19 should not be making $100 more in 2018-19 than they made in 2008.
Yeah, look,
You know, so
I agree with that
that's-
too, but every county around here, most every county experienced a very similar downside. I know we got hit the hardest. We were a lot heavy on housing, and I know we got hit. That's why we get the equalization, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, the system is built to keep us from messing up too bad, I guess. But the, that's all I got for right now.
It's a difficult decision. I mean, because as a taxpayer, of course, I want it to roll back. But then again, I sit from this perspective
Right.
and I see the needs and what we need to do for the school system. And until we get back to where we were in 2008 or wherever it was at the same rate, I just, it's hard for me to say, let's roll back. But I see, the great thing is I see we're getting there. And so I don't foresee it being very long if we were to choose not to roll back this year and we were to wait another year. I mean, I really think we're going to be back where we're supposed to be. And then it'll be an easier decision to make if we were back at that number.
And I think that's
But
what.
saying that, I mean, you know, we've just, all this information, we've all got to take it in, and we vote next Tuesday.
Yes.
And I think that's one, the fact we've kept the millage rate as it is now. I think that's really contributed to the fact that we're able to catch up a lot quicker because it's been the same, and we can do more with the money we're getting in.
And I think the public understands that, right? Like, I think they've seen the last, well, from whatever it was, 08 and 09 is like, that's the years we go and look at, and we go, because it must have been the highest we've ever been as far as revenue. So I think the public understood, man, there was 2014 or whatever, we were spending less than $2,000 locally per student, and that's like 1997 numbers or something, whatever it was.
Right.
So, I mean, the public understands, they were willing to pay it. With valuations the way they're going up now over the last couple of years, and you got to, I assume we project that they would go up again probably next year with all the industry and stuff that is coming. I think at some point, we've got to have a real conversation about rolling back the millage rate, and say we did what we had to do for those years, and then have an honest conversation about it with data we can actually use and have conversation. Because I think we're at the breaking point, right? Especially this year, everyone got their evaluations. There were some pretty big jumps for a lot of folks, and they were like, hey, this is probably enough, right? Like, now when do we get a little bit of this back? We've been helping, and we understood why we needed to. We were willing to pay the 20 mils to help the school system, but now you have enough to get a lot of good things done. Let's take a little burden off the taxpayers if we can. That's certainly my perspective. I know we may not always all share that. The second part, and this is what I didn't want to say a minute ago, but I'm just going to say it, get it out there. The fact that we keep, and all of us up here have mentioned it, we keep going back to 08 and 09 and making that the benchmark, like, oh, when we get there again, oh, when we do this, and oh, if we can only get there. We can't do anything until then. Honestly, like, I understand that's a number that we have to look at to see where we're at today. But man, if we don't focus on 2020, 2021, 2022 and quit talking about 08, 09, like, then we're doing the math wrong. Like, we can go back and add them up, and I can do that. We can do that together. Look, oh, here's where we used to be. Well, used to be is not where we want to be. So I think we can start having the conversation. I would like to have the conversations a little more visionary, a little more forward-focused than to continue it. Like, I guess someday we're going to get past 08, 09 and then go, okay, we don't talk about it ever again until we dip down again. And then we're going to go, oh, man, remember 2018? Remember 2019 when we were back up there at the top? Like, I just think that philosophy, we could probably do a little more forward thinking than continuing looking
Now,
back.
I understand that. I don't ever bring up 08, 09. I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson. But what I do talk about is investment in our students. And so I'm a forward thinker in terms of, and I'm a taxpayer. So let me use myself as an example. I would rather pay more on my taxes than decrease how much cost goes into educating my children. And that's how I forward think. Because I'm done, I'm out of school, I'm working and stuff like that, but they're not. And so I have to be their advocate and their voice. And so in order for me, like, I mean, it goes back to, I was talking earlier about the Stephen Covey, the 7 habits of highly effective people. The more what you put in is what you get out. So what we pay per pupil is what we get out. So for me, my forward thinking is I would rather invest more in a student and as an adult pay for that student than for me to say, oh, cut my costs, and so then that's going to cut my kids' costs too. And that's unfortunate and that's unfair for them. And so I don't go back to that 08, 09. I think about that cost per child. And so they get what we put in. And that's unfortunate. And so when we look at this cost compared to other counties, I'm sitting here looking at this. I mean,
that's the local cost, which when you look at it in total, it was a little bit better,
but you get what I'm saying. So I'm not a 08, 09 person. I'm like, okay, we putting a low amount in per student, which is what Alma was saying earlier. It's not a good thing.
Yeah. And
So,
what Eddie was saying,
That's what I
the
was
more
saying.
students,
It's about time for us to stop looking at '08 and '09, because 20 and 19 and 20, they're looking in our face. That's why, and I said, the 413, well, we'll focus on that as the benchmark. And that is about as wrong as you can say. I mean, it's 10 years old and we're still looking back. And when you got to manage in the rear for 10 years, you're on the wrong track. So we have to look at it, in my view, different. And one of the things that I'm saying is we're going to have to find who they are and do a better job on our funding balance. And I believe, and I've asked for that to put in before we do a projection out and let us see what that would, those year-over-year costs will be on this budget we're going to approve. Right? But, and we'll have a better tool in our hands to do that. We have the facts, to do that. And I think that will give us some insight as to how we should be looking at the years coming, not '08, not '09. We're out of that now.
Just gives you perspective.
Yeah. And that's,
08, 09 gives you perspective because you cannot forget that in 08, 09, at 18.21 mils, the digest was healthier, therefore generating more dollars per mil. So you were able to have a lower millage rate, where now it's not the same digest as it was then.
Understood.
And so you got to have perspective, because what you're talking about, Mr. Johnson, with the 403B, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying, look at everybody who's got the 403B for the last 10 years. Look into the loss, the money that they didn't get over the last 10 years, and predict what that might be on the average. So if that's per pupil, $5,000, or per pupil, per employee, $5,000, then let's look at increasing the 403B to the 5% plus depositing $5,000 to give everybody the average, and then increasing the percentage of the 403B to a more real 2018 rate. So instead of the 5%, which was the floor in 2008, should it be 6.5%? Should it be 7%
Correct.
contribution?
That's right.
So those kinds of prospects are looking, that's looking at a significant investment, which is, I don't have a problem with that. The problem is sustainability. If you get to the business of rolling back the millage rate, that millage rate rollback will continue to grow over time. And you'll be looking at backwards again, because you'll be looking at, at 20 mils, we would have earned this. And so this is the difference between 20 and 19. And in order to get there, we have to up the millage rate to keep pace with just that 403B expense that Mr. Johnson is talking about, which, by the way, I think is a great idea. Forward thinking is great, but the digest is volatile. We don't know. So you have to be very cautious, and you have to look at trends, and you have to look at what the value of the mill was 10 years ago or 11 years ago, because that's what it was then. And, I understand what you're saying in terms of looking forward and projecting out. What do we want to pay our teachers, our new teachers? So let's just say that value is $47,000. Well, that's going to change your whole salary schedule, likely. And if that's the case, then what's the total of that? And then what do the dollars have to equate to get us there? And I submit to you that a rollback is not going to accomplish that. So.
Excuse me, I'm not advocating a rollback.
No, but we're talking about it, and so we're saying, you mentioned that a balance, if we give a $500,000, but then still try to do blah, blah, blah. What I'm trying to say is that you gotta be real cautious about making those decisions, because you can do something for a year and then suddenly be talking about furlough days to try to make up for that change. And so just saying, as we're predicting about what we want to do in the future in terms of 403B, health insurance, dental, vision, hearing, and all of those things, because we want to take care of all our employees, we must look backwards, we must look forward, and we need accurate data. And the data from the state is 18 months behind as well. So the state data rolls off of the digest from 18 months ago. So if your digest is improving over time, 18 months ago, that local fair share is just growing and growing and growing. So just have to, it's a fine balancing act of looking at all the pieces, and, you know, I'm happy to look at it any way, shape, or form, and if we decide that a rollback at some point is necessary, then, you know, I'm a taxpayer too, I live here too, so rolling back is, you know, it's not a bad thing for anyone. I think it's a bad thing for children though, and that's where I'm kind of stuck today. So perhaps, you know, maybe a year from now, 6 months from now, we can visit it again and see where are we in our expenditures and our ending fund balance, and then we can start talking about it in November at our next meeting that discusses the budget. And if there's an opportunity, I say we really look very cautiously at what we do to make sure that we're investing the appropriate amount for our kids.
Will you send us an email with this, or with your PowerPoint? Thank you.
Okay, any other questions as relate to the millage rate? Okay, any other matters of interest, Ms. Coggins?
No, just excited for the school year to start sooner rather than later.
Mr. Johnson?
No comment, no.
Mr. Bailey?
Thank you.
Ms. Baker?
I don't have anything.
Ms. Fury?
August 1st, that's D-Day. It's the day that the children report back, so I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be great.
But our next meeting on millage rate is Tuesday at 9 here.
Yes.
And then 5:30.
9 or 9:30?
9 o'clock here, Tuesday the 24th, 9 a.m., and then Tuesday the 24th at 5:30.
Okay. All minds are clear? Got to get a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Johnson, second by Ms. Coggins. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, same. We stand adjourned. Thank you all
Thank you,
for
everybody.
coming.
You know, this is, you know, any of the board. It's not for, thank you.